Welcome to Reading Africa. Today we're going to read about Oduduwa. Oduduwa was a Yoruba divine king, known as Oba ti Omu Imolewa, which means the bringer of light in Oduduwa philosophy. According to the tradition, he was the holder of the title of the Ooni of Ile-Ife, the Yoruba holy city. He was not only the first ruler of a united Ife, but also the progenitor of various independent royal dynasties in Yoruba land and ancestor of their numerous crowned kings. His name, phonetically written by Yoruba language speakers as Oduduwa, was venerated the hero, the warrior, the leader, and the father of the Yoruba race. For a long time, as propagated by early writers of Yoruba history, he was accorded a Middle Eastern origin. Through a war lasting many years, Oduduwa was able to defeat opposing forces for the 13 indigenous communities of Ife, led by Obatala, to become king of Ife, and formed these communities into a single Ife unit. Oduduwa held the praise names Olufin Ademola, Olufin Aye, and Olufe. Following his posthumous deification, he was admitted to the Yoruba pantheon as an aspect of a primordial divinity of the same name. Ife tradition, which modern Yoruba historians are called presidents, relates that Oduduwa was an emissary from the community of Eke Ora, the easternmost part of the Ife cultural area, which stretches towards the northeastern Ijesa people. Oduduwa descended from the hills on a chain, earning the Oriki Atehonro. He is said to have been a warrior that wore armor made of iron. At the time, a confederacy existed between the 13 communities of the valley of the Ile-Ife, with each community or Elu having its own Oba, the Oba of Ijube, the Oba of Ijiyo, and the Oba of Iwirin. When Oduduwa rose to be a prominent citizen of ancient Ife, he and his group are believed to have conquered or gained support of most of the 13 component communities and deposed Obatala, subsequently evolving the palace structure with an effective centralized power and dynasty. Due to this, he is commonly referred to as the first Ooni of Ife and progenitor of the legitimate kings of the Yoruba peoples. In Yoruba philosophy, Oduduwa was known as the bringer of light, pioneer of Yoruba folk philosophy, and prominent diviner. He pondered the visible and invisible worlds, reminiscing about cosmology and the mythological creatures in the visible and invisible world. His time favored the artist philosophers who produced magnificent naturalistic artwork of the civilization during the pre-dynastic period in Yoruba land. The second epoch is the metaphysical discourse, the birth of the modern artist philosophy. This commenced in the 19th century in terms of the academic prowess. Although religion is often first in Yoruba culture, nonetheless, it is the philosophy, the thought of man, that actually leads spiritual consciousness to the creation and the practice of religion. Thus, it is believed that thought is an antecedent to religion. Values such as respect, peaceful coexistence, loyalty, and freedom of speech are both upheld and highly valued in the Yoruba culture. Societies that are considered secret societies often strictly guard and encourage the observance of moral values. Upon the ending of the Oduduwa's time on earth, there was dispersal of his children and grandchildren from the Ife to the outposts that they had previously founded or gained influence over, in order for them to establish effective control over these places. Each is said to have made his or her mark in the subsequent urbanization and consolidation of the Yoruba Confederacy of Kingdoms, with each child and grandchild fashioning his or her state after Ile-Ife. Orai Mayin was the last son or grandson and the most adventurous of the members of the Oduduwa household. The controversy is that both Oduduwa and his son Ogun had an affair with the same woman, Lakenja, resulting in Orayamiyan. Orayamiyan would later become the first Alafin of Oyo and the sixth Oni of Ife, as well as establish the Oba dynasty in Benin. After the dispersal of the family of kings and queens, the upper regions became ungovernable and constituted themselves into a serious threat to the survival of the Ife. Thought to be supporters of Obatala, who had ruled the land before the arrival of Oduduwa, these people turned themselves into marauders. They would come to town in costumes made of raffia with terrible and fearsome appearances and burn down houses and loot the markets. It is at this point that Moremi Ajasoro, a princess of Ofa of the lineage of Olalomi Olofaran, the founder of Ofa Ile, the paramount head of the Ibolo region of the old Oyo kingdom, a member of the Odun dynasty by marriage to Oran Mayen, is said to have come into the scene. She subsequently played a significant role in restoring normalcy back to the situation through a spying mission. She allowed herself to be captured and taken away with them. Subsequent to this, she had married the king of the Ubo. Her new husband wanted pleasures from her, but she wouldn't give it because she was married previously and was on a mission. She told him to tell her the secret of the marauders. He didn't. However, after a great deal of prodding, he gave in. He told her that the only thing they fear was fire. If they saw the fire, they would run. After this information, she concocted an escape plan. She asked for some oranges and made the juice have a sleeping effect on the palace people. When they woke up after eating the oranges, they found that she had gone to tell her people of their weaknesses. The people of Ife were soon prepared for the marauders, and Oduduwa was again saved. Certain people have claimed a connection to the Oduduwa according to the Kanuri, Yahuri, Gombe, Jakun, and Bogu tribes, whose founding ancestors were said to be Oduduwa's brothers. Oduduwa was the son of Damarudu, whom Yoruba call either Lamurudu or Lamerudu, a prince who was himself the son of the magician King Kingsra. Kingsra and his allies are said to have fought Muhammad in the Battle of Badr. Kingsra was forced to migrate from Arabia into Africa after losing the war to the jihadists in 624 AD. He and his followers founded many kingdoms and ruling dynasties along their migration route into West Africa. This tradition is a variant of the belief that held that Oduduwa was a prince originating from Mecca. However, this belief is thought to have been influenced by Yoruba culture of Islamic and Abrahamic religions and conflicts with other traditions of the Yoruba peoples. Therefore, it is viewed as possibly a myth. This is the end of the reading of Oduduwa. Thank you for listening.